Hey everyone, this is Mike again. Today I want to talk about my new snare drum that I got last week. Um, you may have seen my former snare. It was the basics custom snare that came along with the kit in this sunrise fade. It was okay for me, but I always wanted to have a kind of different looking snare drum for my e-drum set. Because that's what acoustic drummers actually do as well. We as acoustic drummers we always have some different snares, some metal, wooden snares, some smaller side snares, and I wanted to have a contrast to the rest of my kit. So I was always looking to find a one that I really like because that's one of the great benefits of converting drum shells to an e-drum set. You can always concentrate on just the looks of the shell and you don't have to care about if it's maple or birch or bubinga or stuff like that. You just choose the shell that you like the most regarding its optic, and so you can convert it anyway. So finally I found this one. It's the original Tama Metalworks snare, 14 by 5.5. It's a metal shell with black nickel hardware. I got a new hoop because the one that came along with the snare got in used condition, was quite damaged because of the rim shots of the owner. So I got a new hoop, and I really think it looks gorgeous. It's a great looking snare, really fun to play. But I didn't want to talk about the snare drum itself, but about my trigger system. I got some questions about it on my last video that I did, how I converted my whole e-drum set. So today I want to concentrate on the trigger system itself. A few sentences to the specs. I use a 3-ply Billy Blast mesh head, and I have a 3-ply mesh head from Jobiki drums as well, that I use as a reso head. Under the snare you see here, it's a 1-ply black single-ply mesh head. The cool thing is called the plug-in head. It comes from R Drums, who built my triggers anyway. They have this cool system which you see here, where you can connect your stereo cable directly to the head. So this is a really cool feature because you can hide the cable. You don't have to use the air vents of the shell or even to damage the shell for connecting the cable with a trigger system and your model. So this is a cool, quite solid and decent way to connect your shells with your module. The trigger system itself, I will remove just the hoop for a second. This is the mesh head, 3-ply from Billy Blast. So here it is. It's called the RTS trigger system. I have in my toms, I have the single bar system from R Drums as well, because on the toms you don't have positional sensing anyway. Or you don't need it most of the time. The tom you just hit once, maybe you have some rim shots, but you don't have that edge and center articulations anyway. So for the toms, I have the single bar system that I can show you in a photo right now. It works fine for me, but for the snare drum, I made some research before I started converting my drum set, and I wanted just the best trigger system on the market. And I did some research and read a lot of stuff, talked to a lot of people, what trigger technology is all about, and what issues you can have building your own triggers. Speaking of building your own triggers, I know that there are tons of systems out on the market. You just look on the internet, on different forums and Facebook groups, you see a lot of solutions and approaches by different people building trigger systems. Of course, there are all the companies you might have known, from Drumtech to Pintech to Jobiki. They all do some great stuff, really. But I just wanted to even take a step further. I read an article in the Digital Drummer magazine a few months ago. They tested the RTS system as well, and they call it kind of over-engineered. And this was quite funny to me, because I don't think that this is over-engineered. It's just a trigger system made to perfection, because when you think what you need building a trigger system, it's always, of course, this little piezo contact, which translate the vibrations of your hits to electronic signals sending to your module, where you then get the sound over your headphones or your speakers, or in the software like Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer, you get the snare sample, for instance, in this case. So you need this little piezo, you need some kind of foam to protect the piezo and to get the hit from the head. And of course you need some kind of mounting system inside the shell, because somewhere this system has to work inside the shell. And I see and I read a lot of guys talking about, asking me or some others, why do you spend so much money for a trigger system? I've built my own from scratch, buying all the components for the trigger system and made it on my own from scratch. And it cost me about $10 or $12. And you know what? They're right, because of course you can build a trigger system bar or any kind of system within your shell, only spending $10 or $12, because the approach or the idea behind that is pretty simple. You just need this kind of system that catches the strike or the vibration your strike causes on the head, and this will translate to electronic signals to your module. So probably most of the system, you just strike the head and you get a sound. So they call it works, and it works, of course. But the thing is how good it works. I sometimes compare this to cars. When you think of the approach behind a car, like the engine and the gear and 4 wheels, and you have steering wheel and a seat, for example. Of course, you can drive from LA to New York with a Hyundai or 30, 90, 85 Fiat or stuff like that. But of course, you can drive with a Cadillac or Mercedes-Benz or Porsche instead. So both are cars and both work in the way that they drive. The same thing with trigger systems. Of course, when you define working as a trigger system to get, I strike the head and get a sound and then it works, of course, they're right. But the question is, as I told you, how good it works and what approach, what do you want to achieve? You might know electronic drum sets cannot replace or duplicate the feel of an acoustic drum set with all these subtle nuances playing on the snare or on the hi-hat. But the goal, at least my goal when I did this, converting my drum set, was to get as close as possible. So I decided to buy this trigger system because I knew from the start that I would use drum sample software like Superior Drummer. I have Steven Slate drums, some Easy Drummer expansions, addictive drums. And I did some research and I knew that this software and even the better modules from Roland Yamaha, they gave you so much options. And as a drummer, you just don't want to, hit a snare drum always at the same velocity, always in the center. You do some drags, some ghost notes, rim shots and side sticks, and you want to have that translated to your module and to the sounds as close as possible to acoustic drum sets. So one component, of course, is the mesh head, the quality of the mesh head, the quality of the module, of course, and the software itself. But it all ends up in the trigger system and how accurate this trigger system translates your signal and your playing to the module. And this is where, middle class systems are divided from high class systems like this one. When you think of a trigger system and you think of each of the single components, the quality of the foam, the quality of the piezo, the quality of the cable, the quality of the mounting system itself, and the principle of the mounting system connecting to the shell, because this one, for example, it's completely decoupled from the shell. It's self-supporting, so even if I would just lose the screws on each and every lug, on each and every arm, the system would not drop off the shell because it's self-supporting, it's really, really decent quality, and it's just well made. Though I know that we as Germans tend to over-engineer things, maybe sometimes, but this is just, thinking of a trigger system and asking yourself on each component, what would it look like, or what material would it be if I was looking for the best on the market. And you're probably gonna end up building or having something like this. When you connect your trigger bar just to 2 lugs, it's not that stable sometimes, so connecting it to all lugs on your shell, this gives you the complete decoupled and self-supporting system like this one. And I compare this one to some trigger systems that I bought before, some of the Roland RT30 side trigger or internal side trigger systems from Triggerer, for example, and even some trigger bars that just go along like in my toms. And I always, when I build this one and I use this one, I always have to decrease the sensitivity inside my module, because the system captures each and every single stroke of my snare drum absolutely in a correct way, in a really sensitive way, so that I have the feel that all of my playing and all of my notes, no matter how hard I hit or where I hit, especially when using superior drummer or decent software, which gives you the options anyway of different zones within the mesh head. So really cool. This doesn't cost that money, to be honest. I think I had to buy about 240 euro, but that's quite okay for me, because when you look at Roland's high-end PD128, I guess it's called, it's about 500 or 600. Anyway, I think you get the point. If you have any question regarding this project, please leave a comment below. I will try to answer all of them, or even some questions about my kits, converting trigger technology, stuff like that. I'd like to mention that I'm no way endorsed by R-Drums or any of the companies I mentioned in this video. Unfortunately, I have to buy it on my own. So if you have further questions, please leave a comment below. And the last thing, maybe you have been waiting for me to demonstrate the snare drum, playing some grooves or stuff, but I won't do that for just one reason. Don't never trust any of these videos, because I can always manipulate the sound or the sensitivity or any things that I demonstrate you on the snare within my module or in my software. So it proves nothing if I do some, ghost notes or buzz rolls or drags, and even if the trigger system would not capture that correctly, what it would do, of course, I can manipulate everything I do within my module. So if you really want to know how sensitive all the trigger systems work, go check them out, read some articles, speak to people using them. Try them out. You can always send the things back if you don't like them. So please forgive me if I don't do anything like buzz rolls or drags or single stroke hits on the snare drum, because this would make no sense, because the sound you will hear is just the sound from the samples or the module itself, and it proves nothing. That was from me. Thanks for watching again. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, and see you next time. Bye bye.